I've gotten just over halfway through listening to The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and I just don't think I can finish it. I just don't think I can do it. I love her. I usually really like her. I think she's really good at like her characterizations. Like, I think that she like creates really interesting and complex and nuanced characters and relationships, like the ways that, like, I feel like her stories are very, or what I've read from her that I've really enjoyed is the ways that she kind of intertwines the relationships of her characters and kind of how she builds these connections between people, like physically and emotionally, and kind of historic, like within time, temporally. I don't know. I think she's usually a good writer. And this book started off really interesting. I think the concept of like the concept at the start is it like Tookie, who's this indigenous woman that kind of does this stupid crime and gets really fucked for it, like moves a body trying to be nice for a friend and helpful, I guess, and then like it screws her over, and because I guess it was something planned, and she moved cocaine and she went to jail supposed to be for 60 years and then got out after 10, and then like that's that's a bizarre, crazy premise. Like, that's gonna do some really fucked up things to a person. Like, and Miss Erdrich, who's so good at writing interesting people who kind of have all of these complex experiences. Like, yeah, what does Erdrich have to tell me about this woman? She has to tell me that she's boring, not interesting, like insecure in a weird way. Like, I just don't. That's, I've been thinking about this for a few days, and I'm just like, what is it that is bothering me so much? And she just doesn't feel real. Like she just, like, things just happen to her. Like, life has just happened somehow. And she, like, even as the story unfolds, and she, like, where she's just, and seems, like, so timid in a weird way, and so insecure, and unsure of herself. And, like, I guess, yeah, as a kid, like, I don't know, you made this stupid mistake and went to prison. Like, yeah, that's going to put you in a weird spot. But now you're, like, decades in, and, like, you got this husband, which I just don't care about. But that's me. That's just me. That's just me not having no interest in heterosexuality. So I'm just, like, I'm frustrated. Like, I really wanted... and this is an interesting premise from a good writer, but instead it just becomes, like, prolonged. Like, it feels drawn out. Like, she's this, but first of all, I just, like, some people really love the, like, a book about a bookseller who's talking about books, like, listing all the books. Which just to me feels a little like, God, what is, like, she's, like, you're jerking, like, a circle jerk of just, like, look at all of us readers with our books that we like. Like, it feels like movies with a whole bunch of, like, super famous cameos, where, like, it's just, like, it feels like a cheap trick. That's just me. And especially when it's so many, like, I don't feel like it's serving a purpose beyond just kind of, like, it feels very self-indulgent in a way that, like, I just don't care for. And then, you've got this, like, interesting, like, dynamic of Tookie, in her store with this customer that dies, Flora, who becomes, like, the ghost haunting her, who's, like, this woman that, is like a white woman who's kind of inculcated herself into indigeneity through her generosity and her patronage and, all of these things that she does. And, which I think is, like, super interesting in this, what is it like? What is that experience for Tookie to feel to have this relationship with this woman who she like, she says is like kind of her favorite, but is also like she hates. Like, that's a super interesting dynamic. And I do feel like I appreciate the ways that Erdrich kind of weaves indigeneity and unique, specific indigenous experiences, especially like I read some Goodreads reviews. I read a whole mix to get people to validate my frustrations with this book. And like, I appreciate the ways that she kind of interweaves those so that this is partly kind of autobiographical. Like, she owns a bookstore, which I feel that, and I feel that in the sense that like Tookie feels like an unrealized character. Like, I feel Erdrich not in a way that like is good but where it like makes Tookie as a character like less she feels less like a whole person. Like, there's like an absence there that I think is Erdrich kind of inserting herself, and these like self-indulgences that like don't, like, I can't quite get a sense of Tookie, which I'm seeing some things, which is like reading some reviews that are like, you're just not under, like, this is that's just like what this experience is. And I think, well, then it's not well written. Like, like if it's really if she is someone who, has gone through something that is so traumatic, truly, and then has now found herself in a position of like what she kind of feels is real luxury, which is this, like normalcy, this kind of neutrality in her life. Like, that is also like, that can be an interesting kind of point of view if it's written with some kind of like intention. But that's like, this doesn't feel like she's writing like Tookie just kind of feels like a fool, which I don't believe. Like, I don't think that she is just a fool but somehow that's the way that it feels like she's being, like, that doesn't feel honest. Like, I know, like, this is just, she's not a fool. Like, clearly she's learned something. She knows something. Like, she's gotten to this point of her life. How does she feel so, like, like, astonished at her own, like, it's just, like, I'm trying to sort of placate, but, like, in all honesty, she just feels it, like two-dimensional. She feels incomplete. She feels kind of a flimsy. And I'm not interested. Then I guess I'm just not interested in her story. But like, there's all these like, this verse is so cool, so interesting. Like, I want no more of this dynamic with Flora, and I like a supernatural element. Like, yeah, give me a killing book. I will say I do feel like there's a lot of, like, there was the whole, was it the Thanksgiving, where it just is like, it drolls on, and the conversations about the rice and the conflict, and like, I get that it's partly like, this is a story of real life, and like bringing in these kind of sort of mundane pieces that are actually very like important and meaningful, I can appreciate. Except that I don't think it's well done. Like, it feels like there's weird scenes that are drawn out, where I kind of lose interest. And then there's whole like significant pieces, like even just the whole that she was in prison for 10 years, like, and then she got out unexpected. Like, what did that do? What did that do to her? How does she feel about that? Like, how did that shift her experience of life? And how she, like, if she was before going to prison, like, she was kind of naive, and she did something for the good of her friend, and found that she was ultimately like taken advantage of and manipulated and completely fucked, like, sent to a life in prison, and she gets out by like the mercy of a lawyer that was dedicated to her. Like, that is so interesting. I want more of that. Like I don't believe that this woman comes out of it feeling so like insignificant and insecure and uncertain. of how to kind of her place in her own life. I just call bullshit. So that's really frustrating and disappointing. And then I get to the second half, and it's COVID, and I just don't think I'm there yet. I don't think I'm there yet. Maybe that's a me thing. I don't want to read stories about it, especially like ones written in that time. Like there's a sense of, I don't know. Maybe it's in the way that like I don't like memoirs and a lot of like autobiographies. Like I really struggle with, maybe it feels more brutal, like that level of just like this is the reality of what we experienced, and the whole strangeness of and fear and discomfort and anxiety and uncertainty that like it is what sort of made up like a global experience for years, like is just a fucked up, like that's, I don't necessarily, like personally, I just don't necessarily want to be reliving that. And I don't think that I want to be kind of receiving that or engaging with that in a book that it feels so like disconnected, detached, like that feels so like not kind of inquisitive or like reflective of the experience and kind of how we responded to that. And then I went and read the reviews and saw that she continues into the like events of post 2020 COVID and BLM, and which I think can be real, like I think is worthwhile and can be interesting, and I think is incomprehensible for me. And really, like it seems like, I mean, even as I've started this second half, like a chapter, like it feels like a different book where I'm just like, what is going on? And kind of the justifications that I'm seeing for that in the reviews are that like, well, this is a slice of life story. Like this isn't, it's, you're not meant to get a kind of cohesive sort of theme or perspective or like a kind of conclusion or finality from it. This is just the life as it was experienced for Tookie in this time. Which, like, sure, if that's the way that you want to read this, I guess that's like, I don't feel that way at all. Like, one, like, the whole book, it feels, it also does feel like for Erdrich, like, I think, I wouldn't call her a subtle writer, but I think that there's a level of, like, the way that she plays with story and language and relationships. Like, there's an intentionality there, and I think that that kind of each of the ways that these elements and these components interact within her stories like serves the greater story. It's not necessarily giving you a clear-cut meaning or conclusion, but as a whole, when you're engaging with these elements together, when you're reading these experiences, and because she'll have this very like literary, lyrical, kind of poetic moments of that feel like when she's talking about the book and the experience of the book, like she'll just go on these kinds of like soliloquies. I don't know, like these long sort of just not rants, but kind of like about, these sort of like odes, love letters, like to language, to a sentence, to, like, so there's all of these kinds of weird tangents that, that seem sometimes at odds with the rest of the book, but I think that the whole, like a lot of the pieces feel like disjointed, and then you're adding, like, this is just a different story. This is a different story. I'm not, like, I don't know. I can't finish it, which is frustrating because I hate not finishing a book because then I spent all this time listening and I don't get to write it down on my list. It doesn't even get to satisfy that it just another one. So a half finished book, which is disappointing as I like her. And a part of me is like, do I just finish it to like get the whole perspective, and the sense that I'm getting, at least from the reviews, it's like it doesn't go anywhere, which I kind of felt with the first half. And so I don't feel, entirely motivated to march on, to read on, to listen on. And her voice, like her reading it, I kind of liked it at first. Like I don't mind a kind of like slower read necessarily, but it's quite flat, and I get confused a lot. Like she doesn't do anything to distinguish between characters, and so, or like titles of chapters, or like I just feel like I get lost of kind of who's speaking and what's being said, especially with a story that gets quite disjointed, where there's whole monologues, or like there's some word I'm really struggling here to grasp and it's not coming, and that's okay, about just anything. And then a whole like what feel like significant shifts that are just forgotten. She buried the book. What happens now? What do you mean the sentence almost killed you? That's like, can we get into that? Can we talk about this? What is going on in that book? Is that the end of this? But like, I would almost finish the book just to know that. I'm not going to. I'm not going to, because it just is too, I can't do it. I can't get through COVID journal entries to find out about the killing book. I just wish that like, were better.